Well, we're going to talk about the big have. Oakland, the number one team, the 6A poll, number one team in the Tennessee USA Today Tennessee Network Super 25 poll, number one team. They go up the road to a budding rival. They've had some great meetings over the last few years. They're going to go play Maryville, rematch of last year's 6A semifinal. Kind of a controversial ending, depending on who you talk to, with a field goal attempt that went up, and there was some movement on the line, and some people thought there should have been a false start. No flag was given. Maryville wins the game. They go on and win the 6A title. Oakland goes up. I'm sure they're thinking a lot about revenge. It's going to be an interesting game up there at Maryville, and we've got two of our reporters, our Knoxville News Sentinel prep editor, Diana Neros, and Cecil Joyce of the Murfreesboro Daily News Journal. They discussed the game earlier today, and now we want to share their analysis of probably the biggest game in the state this week.
I'm Cecil Joyce of the Daily News Journal, and with me is Diana Neros with the Knoxville News Sentinel. We're going to discuss a little Oakland at Maryville football this coming Friday night. Diana, are you excited about this matchup?
I'm looking forward to this one. You hogged both matchups last year, so I'm glad I get to see one this year.
Well, I got to see a split, so we'll see how it shakes out this year. But last year, obviously, state semifinals, it was a huge game. Oakland led most of the game. Maryville came back, scored a late field goal to win 31-28, eventually winning the Class 6A state title. I know Oakland's probably got a little revenge in mind, but, the way this series has gone the last 3 or 4 years, I think revenge is the last thing that's on either one of these teams' minds.
Actually, I'd say it's probably on both their minds, because Maryville got it in the playoffs when it matters. However, Oakland ended their regular season winning streak, and Braden Carnes is now the starting quarterback. That was his first start, so he said last week he'd like to get that one back and get a win for making up for that first start there.
Carnes played really well last year in the regular season matchup. Oakland's defense was just a little too much. I think it was 17-14 was the final in that game. Saw some really good things out of Carnes, but I think Maryville was anxiously awaiting getting Dylan Hopkins back for the playoffs, and obviously he was a big factor.
They were, and Carnes said it's a little different this year, playing on Friday when he wasn't just filling in. He is not their only quarterback. They are playing both Carnes and Cade Chambers. Carnes got maybe 2/3 of the snaps on Friday, but that can change game to game. But it's still, even sharing the ball, he said this feels more of his or theirs at least, not him just filling in for a game. So it's interesting to see the difference there in how, obviously, he said replacing Dylan Hopkins is one of the hardest things you can ask of a quarterback. But they're excited. They're up for the challenge, and they've got some other weapons that they're really excited about too.
Exactly. And Oakland has got a little different situation at quarterback as well. Last year, they played about 50-50 on snaps between Bradley Linnell and Timmy Goodrich. Goodrich has graduated. Oakland still plays a sophomore, Vic Stevenson, in kind of a wildcat role, but not nearly as much as last year. It's probably a 90-10 split or a 85-15 split between the two. Linnell's pretty much got control of the reins this year and did a good job in week one.
I know
some of the standouts you saw at Maryville's game against Knox Catholic last week.
So the obvious two are T. Hodge and A.J. Davis. T. Hodge has an offer from Tennessee. They're both very quick. They ran track this year. I believe it was A.J.'s first year running track and got faster. T. Hodge is running back, stepping in for his brother Isaiah Cobb in the lead running back role. But Maryville does play two backs. And Bryson Tiefelteller had a really good game last week. He was ended up with the leading stats last week. And really impressed me. I don't want to say surprised me because he played last year some too, but he impressed me, looked good. So they're going to be a dangerous two-back system. And A.J. Davis was the leading receiver this year. Last year, and on Friday. He's back and looks great. He's one that we're going to see blow up on the recruiting side soon. I'm not really sure why he hasn't yet, but I'm sure it's going to happen very soon for him too.
Well, Oakland's offense had a really big day Friday night. Obviously, their defense is highly touted. The defense came through, allowed only 7 points to Independence. but the offense put up 46 points. They had two 100-yard rushers. Transfer student from Nashville Christian, Xavier Myers, rushed for 141 yards, and senior Justin Jefferson rushed for 123 yards. So they had plenty of offense to spread around, but still this team is built on their defense. And I know last year the 31 points allowed to Maryville was the most Oakland has allowed in the Kevin Creasy era. So they're wanting to definitely improve on how they stop Maryville this year. Maryville quarterback Dylan Hopkins had a huge throw late in that game last year. I think his winning when it counted is something that Maryville's probably missing the most out of him. Talk about what these two quarterbacks possess as far as their approach to the game and their leadership.
Well, because we haven't seen a ton of them, we haven't seen exactly what they're going to look like in different games. They both, Coach Derek Hunt said after the game on Friday that they are going to need to improve. The whole offense needs to improve. They've only returned 3 starters. So there's a lot of room for improvement, but he was happy with what he saw at quarterback. Braden Carnes taking a little bit more of the snaps, but he showed good decision making. Obviously Catholic's defensive line isn't as highly touted as their offensive line, but that's a stress on the as because they bring a big line, and he was able to handle them. And there weren't any crazy stats necessarily, but he didn't look flustered or anything at any point. Neither of them did, really. So, well, I can't say how this wasn't close down the line. They pulled it out. The defense shut Catholic out in the second half, and so I can't say what we'll see then. I'd be really interested to see because they didn't look flustered at any point on Friday.
Well, they put up 31 points against the defending state champion, so there's something went right Friday night for sure. I think Oakland's defense and Maryville's offense, I think that's the two keys right now. I don't think it's Oakland's offense versus Maryville's defense right now because Oakland returned 14 starters, a lot on the defensive front. And also they have coming back a transfer from Siegel, Joseph Anderson, defensive end, has played well in the preseason and part of the first game until he got hurt with the elbow injury. We're still trying to assess what his status is for Friday night's game. I will let you readers know in our upcoming articles. The linebacking core is solid. The defensive front solid for Oakland. I mean, defensively, this is about as good a high school defense as I've seen in several years.
Well, Maryville's defense is where they return starters also. Maryville had 3 starters back on offense and 6 on defense, so it might not be quite those numbers you just listed off. But after the game on Friday, Catholic coach Steve Matthews was quick to credit the Maryville defense. And as I said, they shut them out in the second half. This isn't quite the Catholic team we saw last year. However, they're still Catholic, and Maryville shut them out in the second half. And the defense was the part that Coach Hunt was happiest with after that game. So it'll be interesting, not that the defenses go up against each other, but we might not see a super high-scoring game this time out, though I'd be happy to be surprised on that front.
And that would be my prediction. All right, quickly, what's your prediction for the game? Score?
I'm going to say Maryville 21-17.
I'm going to say Oakland 24-14. And there you have it. That's Diana Neros with the Knoxville News Sentinel. I'm Cecil Joyce with the Daily News Journal. And read more on dnj.com and Knoxville News